When I asked our last storyteller what he thought the secret to happiness was, he answered, well, it's not being slapped on the face by a rock star. No. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chesney Hawkes. Come on. Yeah.
So when I left school, my dad said to me, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to be a pop star, like you. My dad was in a band called the Tremolos. They were very big in the 60s, and they had hits like Silence is Golden and Here Comes My Baby and Hello Buddy. And I guess I always wanted to be like him. I mean, he gave me music, and music was always my life. So he said to me, I tell you what, I know you love your music, son, but it's a tough business. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to do you a deal. I'll give you to the end of the summer. And if you're not a pop star by the end of the summer, then it's back to school for you. So I thought about it. I was like, okay, 12 weeks to become a pop star. I can do this. So I went out and looked for gigs and started to, look around the area. And I found a few gigs, mainly pubs, because that's all there is in England. And I found this one particular gig, the Wells is a pub in a place called Ascot, which is famous for a race course. And that place was fun. The clientele were fun because, you'd get like women in big hats and fine jewelry and men with bow ties and morning jackets, all very merry from their days racing. And when I say merry, I mean completely out their minds. And I would play the piano. I used to bring my little dog with me, Dizzy, and he would sleep at my feet. And I'd play the piano, and I'd play Elton John, I'd play Stevie Wonder and Billy Joel songs. I mean, I was a piano man, but I loved music, all kinds of music, and I was a songwriter, and I loved guitarists like Eric Clapton, and Pete Townsend was a big idol of mine. Every night at this pub would be a completely different experience. One night I would be the glorified kind of background music where I would just be sitting in the corner and nobody paying any attention to me. And that's really where I learned to play the piano. I'd just go into myself and just disappear in music. Other nights would be a sing-along around the piano where people would be asking for requests, and it was a big kind of party. So I started doing pretty well, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm actually doing things now. It was about 3 weeks into my quest, I guess. And suddenly a disaster happens. I had to have my wisdom teeth out, all 4 of them. Mainly I was worried because I realized it's going to, put a big dent in my chances of becoming a pop star in 12 weeks. So, but I had to do it. So I went in and I had my wisdom teeth out. And I woke up in the hospital bed in an anesthetic haze, and my parents were standing here, and there was a TV in the corner of the room. And Roger Daltrey, the lead singer of The Who, was on being interviewed. And he was looking for a young boy that could possibly be his son, play his son in a film that he was producing. And a story about a man and his son who was in the music industry. So I was lying there, and this some light bulb went off. I was like, so my dad was like, oh yeah, sounds good, son. So the week after that, I found myself at a kind of American Idol style, audition with hundreds of boys, all looking for the same part. And I did. I read a little bit from the script in front of 3 casting agents, and played a song on the piano, and it went pretty well. And then I got a call back. I was like, great, okay. And I came back and I did the same thing to a slightly bigger panel of people, and I got another call back. So I was thinking, wow, actually getting excited. This might actually happen. So eventually it comes down to me and one other guy, one other kid called Cal. I remember his name. And we were going to battle it out at a big screen test that was going to be held at Bray Studios. And everyone knows Bray Studios. It's west of London, and it's a huge complex of studios where all the kind of arena and stadium acts rehearse before their big tours and everything. And the reason they were doing it there is because The Who were rehearsing for one of their recent comeback farewell tours that they do every 2 years. So my dad was going to drive me. So the day came, and we're driving along this leafy green country road west of London. We're about a mile outside of Bray. And my dad just pulls into a lay-by, and he stops the car, and he turned to me and he said, "Son, you don't have to do this. I'll just turn the car around, we can go home." And I was like, "What?" He said, "It's okay if this is not your path and you feel uncomfortable doing this. I understand, and I love you, and we can just go home." And even then, in that moment, I realised that was a very important moment, and I loved him for that. But we went anyway. So I got down the road to Bray, and we turned up there, and I met Cal, my arch nemesis. And we met Roger, who's this kind of larger-than-life, even though he's only 5'4", character. He's a very bolshy kind of Cockney guy, barrel chest, and he's like, "All right, Chesney, nice to meet you." And I was up first, and we had to do this scene, this really emotional scene between father and son that culminated at the end with him slapping me in the face. That was the idea. And now I wasn't an actor at this point. I didn't know how it worked, and I'd certainly not been slapped in the face by my real dad, so I didn't know how this was going to work. I guess I just presumed that he was going to pretend to slap me, and I was going to pretend to be slapped. I don't know. So, and I didn't ask the question. I just thought, well, let's just do it, So, we got into the scene, and it was going well and everything, and it came to the moment where he was going to slap me, and he kind of raised his hand like this, and he just walloped me across the face, like, absolutely took me by surprise, and I didn't have to act, put it that way. I had real tears in my eyes, and a big red mark across my face. So that was that part of the screen test. And yeah, that was just the beginning. So the next part was the musical part, and I was led into the huge space that The Who were rehearsing. And I was a 17-year-old boy, and I'm a musician, and this is what I want to do. So it was a really big moment for me, walking into this room with a massive stage and the drums and the lights and there's roadies running around and everything. And I look up, and to my delight, but then instant horror, Pete Townsend is on stage tuning a guitar. And I say horror because I suddenly realised that I'm probably going to have to do this part of this audition in front of one of my idols, So I got onto the stage, and by now Pete had walked off, and he was standing at the back of the room with his arms crossed like this, kind of leaning on the back wall, looking at me like with that impress me look. And so I sat down at the piano, and I started to play a song. It was a song that I'd written. It's called Friends and Lovers, and it's as good as a 17-year-old boy's love song can be. It was all right. I got through it. It was good. And I felt pretty good about it. And then they sprung a surprise on me. They said, "Would you play a song with a guitar?" Now, I have to say, at this point, I was not a guitar player. I literally picked up a guitar at the beginning of the audition process for this film. So it's been like 3 weeks, and my dad showed me a couple of chords, because I knew that Buddy played guitar, so I thought I should give it a go, So I knew a couple of chords, and I was very novice. So they put this red strapped Stratocaster around my neck, and I was holding this guitar. And I was very aware that I didn't know how to play this thing, really. And then there's one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived, just standing there at the back of the room. So I thought the best thing to do is close my eyes and just go into it. So I just started singing this Elvis song, "Well, that's all right, Mama, that's all right with me." And I was getting into it, and I suddenly felt this hand on my leg, and it took me out of my mojo, and I looked down, there's Roger Daltrey grabbing my leg. He says, "Stop fucking moving your leg!" And I just I said, "Sorry," and managed to get through the rest of the song. I bluff my way through the song, and that was it. And one of the producers said, "Okay, thank you very much. We'll be in touch." So I just kind of, took the guitar off, and the roadie took it off, and I sloped off the stage, and Dad and I got back in the car, and we drove back down the English country road in silence. And I went back to my life, and went back to my gigs. And a week went by, I still hadn't heard anything, and it came to Sunday night at the Wells pub with my little pooch, and I had all these thoughts going around my head. I was like, on the positive side, I'll never have to have my wisdom teeth out again. On the negative side, I've only got 4 weeks to become a pop star. So, I got to the door, and I opened the door to the pub, and there was this huge cheer, and a banner across the piano that said, "Hello, Buddy," which was a song that my dad made famous in the 60s. But I wasn't kind of thinking straight, and I was like, what does this mean? And I suddenly looked over, and all my friends were there, and my family were there, and they all had champagne, and I was like, "Well done, Chesney!" So I'd obviously got the part. It was just the most amazing moment in my life, just, oh my God, I've got the part. And we had a huge party at the pub, and it was amazing. We had a lock-in at the pub, and I don't really remember much about that night, to be honest, but there was one moment with my dad, and we were sitting at the bar, and we both had a pint of lager. You can do that at 17 in England. And my dad said to me, "Son, I'm proud of you. You're not a pop star yet, but it looks like you're not going back to school."